When Lena stepped off the bus and rounded the corner onto Lincoln Avenue, the old brick facade of the Arlington Community Center rose before her like a promise, a wooden door framed by hand-painted panels of sunflowers and bluebells. She had come to attend the monthly neighborhood liaison meeting, an open forum where residents and the city council worked together on traffic calming, park cleanup, youth programs. She tightened her scarf and approached the front entrance. Pinned to the right of the door was a stark white placard, the letters crudely sprayed in black. No minorities allowed. Lena's breath caught. A knot formed in her stomach. She scanned the sidewalk. A handful of early arriving parents with strollers, a dog walker, a postal carrier. None of them seemed to notice the sign. Her heart thumped. This couldn't be real. She knocked politely, then rapped harder. A young man in a cheap suit peered through the glass. "May I help you?" he asked, voice polite but wary. Lena swallowed. I, I'm here for the liaison meeting. I saw the sign." He hesitated. What sign?" He glanced past her as if searching for another entrance. "The meeting's in room 102, down the hall. Just head on in." "No," Lena said, voice shaking. "No, that sign on the door. No minorities allowed. You put it up." The man's gaze flicked to the placard. His skin was pale, his hair sandy. He looked embarrassed. Um, that's not our sign. Must be a prank." Lena stared at him. "If it's a prank, why hasn't anyone taken it down?" He shrugged, stepping aside. "I didn't do it. Go ahead, they're waiting." Lena pushed the door open and slipped inside, heart pounding. The wood plank creaked under her boots. A pale fluorescent light revealed a long hallway lined with folding chairs and civic posters. Bike Lanes 101, Volunteer at Arlington Park, Youth Sports Scholarships. At the far end, on a low stage beneath a banner reading, "Welcome Neighborhood." Liaison meeting. The Chamber of Commerce table was set. Water pitchers, plastic cups, a microphone on a stand. No sign of "No minorities allowed." She took a deep breath and inched forward. A small group of neighbors, grandmothers in pastel coats, college students in hoodies, a construction foreman with rolled-up sleeves, murmured among themselves. They were chatting and laughing. Nobody seemed upset by the placard. Lena's confusion deepened. She approached the first person she recognized, Mr. Alvarez, an elderly Hispanic man who led the monthly park cleanups. "Mr. Alvarez," she whispered, "did the sign come down?" He blinked at her. "What sign?" "The one on the door," she said. "No minorities allowed." He adjusted his eyeglasses. "Oh, someone painted that outside a couple days ago. City crews took it off." He gestured at the glass door beyond. "They buffed it clean this morning." Lena tracked his gaze. For the first time, she noticed the scuffed wood frame of the door, where fresh white paint hadn't quite covered dark spray paint stencils. A rough rectangular patch glimmered in the hallway light. Faint letters, bleeding edges. "No minor itis all load," she exhaled. "But if they removed it," she said, "why is it still on the door outside?" He shrugged. "Don't know. People say someone keeps putting it up again once the crews leave." Lena felt something shift in her chest, a tremor between outrage and curiosity. She sat in a folding chair, folded her hands in her lap, and waited for the council members to arrive. Moments later, the doors at the back opened, and a small procession entered. Mayor Denise Carter, flanked by two council members, Grace Patel and Andre Williams, and a tribune of aides. They were all women and men of color. Lena's head snapped up. How could that be? She thought the council was an all-white body. Mayor Carter smiled warmly and took the podium. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming." She began the usual agenda: potholes on Elm Street, the cost of field lights at Douglas Park, crosswalk safety near the elementary school. The murmurs of the neighbors rose and fell as each topic passed. Lena's mind raced back to the sign, "No minorities allowed." It was a message of exclusion, of hate. Yet here before her sat the very people entrusted with inclusion, leaders of color, chosen to represent the entire city. She felt a flush of shame. She'd assumed the council was white, because only white people would think to post such a sign. After the formalities, the mayor opened the floor. Lena raised her hand. The microphone shivered as she took hold of it. "I don't know if you're aware," she began, voice unsteady, "but there's a disturbing sign on the front door. It says, 'No minorities allowed.' I tried to go in, but it's still there." the room went quiet. Councilmember Patel exchanged a glance with Councilmember Williams. Then Mayor Carter nodded gravely. "Thank you for bringing that to our attention again, Ms. Lena Reeves," she said. "Ms. Reeves," the mayor said, "we're deeply sorry you've seen that message. We've asked the facilities department to remove it, but it keeps reappearing overnight. We'll take it down permanently and keep the cameras trained. That sort of intimidation has no place in our city." Lena felt tears prick her eyes. I just want everyone to feel welcome." Mayor Carter's eyes softened. "As do we." She tapped a stack of flyers. "In fact, we've scheduled a community forum next week on urban equity. I hope you'll join us." Lena nodded, blinking away tears of relief. Over the next hour, she listened to neighbors share concerns. Some about the sign, some about noise from late-night deliveries, some about the new bakery lease by the corner. The council members took notes, promised follow-up. Eventually, the session ended in warm handshakes and applause. Lena stepped down, suddenly cautious. Would the sign still be outside? After the meeting broke up, she lingered a moment. Councilmember Williams caught her eye and waved her over. His smile was gentle. "Lena, thank you for speaking up. Would you mind walking me to the front door? I'd like to see for myself." She joined him and another aide as they headed back down the hallway, past the exit sign flickering above the double doors. Outside, the night was cool and still. Lights from the street lamps pooled on the sidewalk. But the sign was gone. In its place, someone had pinned a new placard. "Welcome to all neighbors." Lena felt her chest expand. She turned to the council members, whose faces were illuminated by the lamps. "You did this?" she asked. Mayor Carter stepped forward. "Our community liaisons installed that sign this afternoon. We wanted to show the difference a welcoming message makes. Just a small act of reclaiming our own space." Patel added, "We're going to replace that side of the door entirely next month, with new glass panels and an all-weather decal. But for now, we wanted you to see it." Lena stared at the friendly faces around her. Black, South Asian, East Asian. Leaders of the city she cared about. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I thought the sign was from a hate group." Williams shook his head. "I understand why, but I'm glad you came in to tell us. It reminded us how fragile civility can be." Lena smiled through her lingering tears. "Thank you for listening." Over the days that followed, the story spread. A woman saw a hateful sign, reported it, and found out the city council, entirely comprised of people of color, was behind the replacement sign that championed inclusion. Local news ran a feature on the incident. "Resident mistakes council for bigots," the headline teased, before clarifying how the council had transformed a symbol of hate into one of welcome. At the next forum on urban equity, the mayor began by recounting Lena's experience. The room erupted in laughter and applause. Lena sat in the front row, grateful that a moment of fear had become a teaching moment. She watched as council members of every background listened to migrant families, young entrepreneurs, seniors with mobility issues. No voice was barred from the table. And there at the threshold of the community center, the new glass door bore the decal, "Welcome to all neighbors." No ambiguity, no exception, no remaining shadows of exclusion. Lena carried that lesson forward. She ran to join the city's advisory board on diversity, volunteered at the local shelter, and every time she passed the community center, she pressed her palm to the glass and whispered thanks to the leaders who had turned a message of hate into a message of home. In the weeks that followed, the glass panels at the community center were replaced as promised, and a bold, colorful decal appeared. "Welcome to all neighbors," spanning the width of the entrance. Beneath it, someone had graffitied a small sunflower, its bright petals curling around the words, and no one dared remove it. Lena found herself drawn back to that doorway more often than she expected, pausing to press her hand against the cool glass and remember how fragile a welcome can feel and how vital it is to sustain it. She volunteered to help repaint the faded mural along Lincoln Avenue, which depicted families of every hue and age holding hands beneath a sprawling oak. Every Saturday morning, she and a handful of other neighbors, some new, some old, gathered with rollers and brushes. Councilmember Patel turned up in an old t-shirt emblazoned with the words, "Arlington for everyone," patiently sketching in a figure of a wheelchair user next to a toddler. Even the mayor, usually guarded and formal, joined them one foggy dawn, dipping her brush into a bucket of sky blue paint and smiling at Lena when their hands met over the same roller. At the next liaison meeting, the room itself felt different. Tables had been rearranged into clusters, so people sat in small circles rather than facing a head table. The microphone was passed freely, and residents from the Eastern Bloc spoke up about plans for a community garden, while teenagers from the West Side proposed after-school art classes. Lena watched Councilmember Williams jot notes furiously, then step aside afterward to thank a shy young man for his suggestion about evening basketball hours. The ease with which he spoke to that teenager, no condescension, no distant politeness, felt like the truest marker of change. One evening, as autumn leaves skittered down the sidewalk, Lena stayed late at the center to help clean up. She found a scrap of paper taped under a chair, someone's anxious scribble reminding a friend, "Don't forget to bring snacks for the cultural potluck." She smiled, recalling the heavy silence that had once hung in this room, and set to work gathering stray paper cups and empty plates. As she stacked chairs, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in the window. No sign behind her now, just the warm glow of lamplight and the rows of chairs ready for tomorrow's stories. When the first potluck arrived, an invitation to share dishes and traditions, tables overflowed with spiced lentils, tamales wrapped in corn husks, baklava glistening with syrup, and steaming bowls of ramen topped with soft-boiled eggs. At a long oak table against the back wall, Councilmember Andre Williams stood dishing up his spicy chicken stew beside the local imam's fragrant biryani and Mrs. Alvarez's flan. Lena watched as neighbors hesitated over unfamiliar dishes, then took small bites, nodding in delight and offering "thank you" in Spanish, Arabic, and Mandarin. In that room, every flavor told a story of arrival, adaptation, belonging. Word of Arlington's renewal spread, and delegations from nearby districts came to observe. Lena found herself showing a small group around one Saturday. The bright new sign, the polished lobby, the bulletin board where upcoming events fluttered in rainbow order. She told them about the sign that had once barred the door and all that had followed. The courage to enter, the leaders who listened, the art and festivals that wove strangers into neighbors. The visitors nodded eagerly, snapping photos of the sunflower spray and promising to take the idea home. Months later, Lena stood on a makeshift stage in the center's parking lot, holding a microphone once more, but this time as one of the evening's hosts rather than an anxious newcomer. Fairy lights crisscrossed overhead, and food trucks lined the perimeter, their neon signs reflecting off parked cars. The crowd spilled across the asphalt, families on picnic blankets, teenagers leaning against folding chairs, elders with walking sticks tapping in time to the music. On stage, local bands played gospel jazz fusion next to a mariachi trio, followed by spoken-word poets who recited in English and Somali. Every voice was met with cheers. When Lena introduced the mayor, now wearing a loose linen shirt instead of her usual blazer, the applause was thunderous. Denise Carter stepped up to the mic and held up a painted wooden sign. "All are welcome here." She smiled at Lena and the crowd, her eyes bright. "This community," she said, was always ours to build. Thank you for reminding us what we can become when we refuse to accept exclusion." The music swelled and people danced in the dusk, weaving through their own stories like threads in a living tapestry. Late that night, as Lena helped sweep discarded napkins and empty cups into a bin, she caught sight of someone spray painting over a neighbor's graffiti, a dark silhouette adding fresh yellow petals to the sunflower. She smiled at the quiet insistence of that act. In Arlington, welcome was no longer a fragile placard, but a living vow, renewed every day by every hand that reached out in paint, in food, in song. And Lena knew, as she locked the doors and turned off the lights, that someone else would wake early to paint new blossoms, keep the mural bright, and guard the doorway for all who came in. Lena walked home under a hush of early morning mist, the echo of the festival still warm in her bones, and found herself imagining what the next chapter of Arlington's story might be. Over the following weeks, the community center's calendar filled to overflowing. Youth coding workshops in the old library wing, senior memory cafes, where elders shared photographs and recipes, a weekly story quilt circle that stitched together scraps of cloth with stories of arrival and belonging. Every Monday, Lena met with Grace Patel and Andre Williams in the small conference room, now repurposed as the Ideas Lab, to plan everything from a citywide mural competition to an exchange program with the sister city in Oaxaca. Meanwhile, the sunflower motif began appearing everywhere, stenciled on crosswalks near the elementary school, woven into the logo of the new Arlington Youth Council, embroidered onto tote bags sold at the weekend farmers market. Children painted miniature sunflowers on smooth stones and hid them in park flower beds for others to find. When someone discovered one, they posted a photo online with the hashtag Sunflowers for all. Lena marveled at how a single spray-painted bloom had grown into a citywide emblem of hope. At first, business owners worried that the murals and sidewalk art would wear away. Instead, they found the opposite. Customers lingered, took pictures, brought their families downtown. Traffic studies showed a 15% drop in speeding on Lincoln Avenue after the crosswalk stencils went up, drivers instinctively slowing to admire the sunflowers. Even the local bakery, whose owner had once expressed trepidation about the city's demographic changes, launched a special sunflower scone each morning, donating a portion of proceeds to the community center's scholarship fund. Lena herself was swept into new projects. She joined the steering committee for the upcoming bicentennial parade, insisting that floats represent every neighborhood. The South Asian grocery with its glittering Rangoli pattern, the Latinx dance troupe with papel picado banners streaming. Behind them, the deaf youth group signing Greta Thunberg's climate speech. When she proposed a sunflower float, featuring representatives from every Arlington association, as a symbol that no one stood alone, the committee embraced the idea unanimously. Even beyond the parade, the sign "Welcome to All Neighbors" became a template replicated on fire stations, school entrances, the police precinct, and eventually on the City Hall facade itself. A visiting delegation from a neighboring county came to document Arlington's approach, and soon similar decals and murals began appearing in square after square. A bold, affirming chorus of welcome that stretched down the state highway to every small town along its route. At home, Lena's apartment on Madison Street filled with mail from people offering to help. Artists volunteering to repaint fading murals, carpenters offering to build benches for the community garden, retired teachers pledging to mentor after-school clubs. She found her phone ringing late into the evening, inbox overflowing with invitations to speak at faith communities, civic associations, even corporate diversity trainings. Each time she hesitated, remembering how unsure she'd felt the night she first saw that hateful sign, until she realized that sharing her story now was another way of dismantling fear. One afternoon, 3 years after the initial incident, Lena received a letter sealed with the city council's crest, an invitation to run for the open seat representing her district. The incumbent council member, Grace Patel, had been elevated to deputy mayor and was endorsing Lena as her successor. Lena's heart hammered. She had never dreamed of running for office, but as she walked through the community garden, now a riot of sunflowers, zinnias, and native grasses, she saw the faces of the people who had trusted her. Senior citizens tending their tomato plants, toddlers chasing butterflies, teenagers studying under the pergola she had helped fund. She realized that leadership was simply about listening and acting. With a steady breath, she accepted the nomination. Her campaign was whirlwind but joy-filled. Volunteers canvassed door-to-door with yard signs bearing a sunflower logo. Phone banks buzzed with cheerful conversations in 4 languages. Video clips of Lena speaking at festivals and youth panels went viral in local groups. In every forum she attended, opponents spoke of tax rates and infrastructure. Lena spoke of community, of shared murals, of sunflowers peeking through cracks in the pavement. When election night arrived, the auditorium surged with the same warmth she had first felt in that liaison meeting. When the final results flashed on the screen, Lena Reeves, duly elected council member for District 4, she stepped onto the stage beneath a giant sunflower banner, tears in her eyes, hands trembling with the promise of new beginnings. On her first day in office, Lena walked the halls of City Hall, the same corridors she had once wandered only to report a hateful sign. Now the doors were open. City staff greeted her by name. A new plaque on the lobby desk read, Office of Community Welcoming, established 20XX. In her office, the windowsills held potted sunflowers and small plaques reading, Inclusion is Action. She set to work assembling. Her team, a community liaison who spoke 6 languages, an urban planner specializing in equitable development, a data analyst tracking measures of social well-being. Together, they drafted the city's first Inclusion Impact Report, a quarterly scoreboard that tracked not only road repairs and budget compliance, but also measures like resident satisfaction, cultural event participation, and the number of neighborhood welcome signs installed. Lena's humble beginnings, the single spray-painted message on a cold October morning, remained at the center of her story. Each time frustration or cynicism crept into council debates, she reminded her colleagues, a sign doesn't heal a wound. A welcome reopens a community. She led tours for new city employees, bringing them to the mural on Lincoln Avenue, to the sunflowers dotting crosswalks, to the community center, where chairs still bore the shadows of countless neighborhood forums. She showed them where that original sign had once been stenciled over, now replaced by etched glass praising diversity. 5 years into her term, Arlington had become a model of civic inclusion. Neighboring cities sent delegations regularly. Lena and the mayor traveled to state conferences to present their model. Harvard's Kennedy School published a case study on their sunflower approach to crisis response, how a hateful act became the seed of a flourishing ecosystem of belonging. The story of Arlington was taught in civics classes. Children drew sunflowers in social studies textbooks. Lena even received a national award for public service, though she always reminded friends that she was simply one neighbor among many. On the 20th anniversary of that first liaison meeting, the city organized a commemorative event at the community center. Under the new glass panels, an artist installed a carved stone tablet. Here stood hatred, here now stands welcome. Lena, now deputy mayor, stood beside Denise Carter, the city's first mayor of color. They unveiled the tablet to a crowd of hundreds: former naysayers, immigrant families, LGBTQ advocates, business owners, school teachers, and the next generation of children, all holding sunflowers. The mural along the curb had been refreshed, the rows of seedlings now mature blooms. Lena pressed her palm to the stone and remembered how far they had come, and how far the city could still go. As she looked out over that gathering, faces bright with pride and tears glistening in twilight, she felt the same knot in her stomach she had known years before. Only now it was a knot of hope. She realized that vigilance was perpetual. Welcome required constant tending, just like the sunflowers that bent toward the sun. And in that moment, Lena Reeves, once the newcomer trembling at a hateful sign, understood that her life's work would always be to keep the flowers growing, the doors open, and the promise of Arlington alive for every neighbor yet to arrive.